Chapter 310. Kishir began to move without hesitation. Either feeling the absence of anyone nearby voiced his puzzlement. I thought Kana and the others were with us. I sent them to the majors since I had something to look into. They will meet us when we arrive, so don't worry. Yudhir was often amazed at Kishir's acute perception. In his current situation, unable to walk on his own, he had no more to say, so he simply closed his mouth. Soon enough, the clamor of voices drew closer, and Kishir finally set Yudhir down, lightly supporting his shoulder so he could lean on him. Yudhir, you're here? Kana, the first to rush over without hesitation, grabbed onto Yudhir's opposite arm. Commander, I'm sorry we are late. We can support him now, so you can let go. Emun, who followed behind, faltered with a slightly frightened tone. Kishir, who had been silent, slowly let go of Yudhir's shoulder. Though the others didn't seem to notice anything unusual about this, Yudhir detected a hint of subtle regret. All right, go ahead. The vicinity of the magic spring was morphing into a state both similar and different from before. The barrier magic and amplification circles that previously filled the area were mostly deactivated. With new magic circles interspersed between them, the 14 mages who were in control of 12 circles were busy preparing for the end and thus only noticed Yudhir's arrival a bit late. Well, you are here. Michelin Punt, the leader of the Western Mage Union, approached while rubbing his grimy hands. Seeing Yudhir being supported by his comrades, the old mage's eyes shook as if shocked, but he quickly collected himself and concealed it. All our preparations are complete. If you give the order, we can activate the circles at any time. Good to know. Kishir, who had been slowly scanning the area, directed his gaze at the still calm magic spring. Between the gaps of the magic circles that once surrounded the area like a wall, he could see a hint of magic power shimmering and flowing out like a mirage. Thanks to the long-term amplification, the region was pulsating more vigorously than ever with pure magic power. The red eyes passed over the faces of those waiting for an unknown command and finally stopped on Yudhir's face, quietly standing while being supported by two comrades. Despite having just arrived after an uncertain period, his forehead and neck were already beaded with cold sweat. Yet he endured with calmness, not due to any pride or shame, but seemingly with familiarity with such a state. His pale face, revealed under the bandages, were utterly expressionless, as if he didn't even consider his situation to be difficult. In fact, he'd been like that ever since he woke up from his injury. Just as Yudhir's eyes darkened slightly, the last of the waiting cavalry members finally arrived. Commander, we have all arrived. Everyone, to your positions. Turning his body, Kishir issued his command to all. It was time to see the result of the solution they had been working on for so long. Those supporting Yudhir helped him sit on a circle close to the magic spring. The 12 mages, including Michelin, went to their respective circles, while the cavalry members spread out as if protecting the perimeter, and Kishir stood on the largest circle, drawn in a position where he could face Yudhir. Even with Kishir merely taking his position, all felt a profound sense of their commander's presence, as though he had stepped up to the very front. With the formation, where he stood at the center, connected like spider legs to 12 other formations. Either formation seemed like prey ensnared in the tendrils of spiderweb. I will activate the first formation. Following this declaration, the first mage muttered the spell in a tense voice. At this, the formation beneath him began to glow, and the power emanating from the magic spring increased explosively. It was evidence that the formation was drawing in the surrounding magic power correctly. Soon after, the second and third mages made the same declaration and activated their formations. The formations beneath them, outlined by the magic stones they had held in their hands, began to gradually heat up, glowing brighter with every strained swing of their arms and chant of their spells. I will activate the 11th formation. I will activate the 12th formation. In the midst of a whirl of enormous energy, finally, Michelin activated the 12th formation. The surrounding trees and the forest shivered in unison as a strong wind blew. The cavalry members, weary of being swept up in this power, braced themselves and observed the spectacle. They had been briefed about what to expect, but the sensation of witnessing it firsthand was in a completely different realm. As each formation activated, the intensifying white light followed the connected lines towards Kishir in the center. When all 12 formations had finally been activated, the gathered light was so intense that Kishir's figure was barely discernible. The cavalry members, only just realizing the depth of their commander's magic power, were intensely anxious for Kishir's safety, while the 12 mages were tense for a somewhat different reason. The success of the spell being cast today hinged entirely on how well the Duke of Paleta could manage this enormous magic and adjust each formation. Normally, such important work would be entrusted to the most proficient and experienced person, naturally expected to be the leader Michelin. But the Duke of Paleta had firmly refused and taken the position himself. So far, he was chillingly perfect in controlling all the formations. Kishir, his hands wrapped in golden magic, controlled the light converging on the formation. As the gathered white light at the center changed to blue, then from blue to red, the magic power emanating from the spring increased, causing the waves sweeping the surroundings to intensify. As time passed, the mages were soaked in sweat, and Kishir, who was controlling the entire formation, started to breathe a little harder. Finally, the light gathered in the center turned black, and the strong wind subsided slightly. This was the moment when the power they had tried to complete through the formation had finally taken shape, signaling that the time had come. The mages, through Kishir's control, reached out unanimously towards the black light gathered in center formation. They combined their powers to cover Yudhir's formation with the light. As the blackened formation lifted into the air and whipped around, Yudhir's figure inside was hidden from the view. Is everything going okay? Kana, standing right next to Eamon, listened to his panting murmur without even blinking her eyes, her gaze fixed on the spectacle. While Yudhir stood, his aura appeared as if alive, greedily devouring the light pouring into it in a swirling torrent. Despite having gathered and expended such light for so long, the speed at which it disappeared was so fast that in the blink of an eye, Yudhir's form was revealed once again to all present. The mages chanted their spells with greater intensity. The spirals of power flowing from the magic spring increased in strength. Still, Yudhir's aura persistently devoured the light again and again. Not long after, one of the mages let out a stifled groan. The speed is too fast. He crumbled, unable to bear the excessive energy drain, dropping to one knee. The flow of magic power heading towards the central aura wavered. At the same time, one of the Kishir's arm, wrapped in the golden light, jerked and stiffened. Commander! Someone called out, but no disaster struck. Kishir, as if anticipating the situation, calmly made a small wave with his hand. The energy erupting from the magic spring explosively increased, causing the golden light enveloping his hand to grow. Just this increase in light was enough for the wobbling power to regain its stability quickly. Even when several other mages dropped to their knees afterward, Kishir each time amplified the light with the same method, supplementing and controlling the unstable power of the aura. His gaze was solely fixed on either ale in front of him. I have no idea what's going on. The spell is complete, but the target requires more magic power than that. If we continue this way, we might break due to insufficient magic power. Emon muttered while tapping his foot, and the mage closest to them, stationed at the seventh aura, briefly explained while panting. Finally, when all the mages besides Michelin reached their limits, the light absorbed by the aura enveloping Uther was almost entirely golden. When will this end? Someone muttered in exhaustion when, finally, even Michelin Punt faltered and dropped to his knee. The elder mage kept chanting his spell until the moment he fell, but there was an instant of weakness in the power flowing towards the central aura. When the only light flowing into the aura became Kishir's golden light, brought forth through the magic spring, everyone present had a premonition of the impending failure. However, Kishir's next move was something no one could have predicted. Instead of the 12 auras that had lost their efficacy, he directly reached out toward the magic spring. The golden power surged explosively, tracing a complex trajectory of light. Over it layered different colors of energy that seemed to protect the magic, and suddenly a new light began to gush over the abandoned auras. The much more potent spell was being rapidly woven. Ah! With an awe-struck gasp from someone, the newly completed spell was immediately cast over Uther's aura. The tremendous burst of light forced everyone to close their eyes. They felt a strong wind sweep over them. After a moment, when people raised their heads, they saw that all the light had faded and the wind had calmed. The aura had not shattered and remained intact. No one was injured. There was no failure.